What's going on, guys? National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and today we have game of the day. With the white pieces, we have Daniil Dubov, and with the black pieces, we have Magnus Carlsen. This is the Airthings Masters, so let's get right into it, guys. Airthings Masters. D4, Knight f6, C4, and E6 here. You may see a transposition into many different positions from here. Of course, we still have Queen's Gambit decline. You have a Bogo Indian and maybe even a Nimzo Indian, depending on what white plays in this position. So Dubov says Knight f3, no Nimzo today. It's very dynamic stuff. We're going to mix it up. Let's actually see what you're going to play with black. And then D5 from Magnus here, actually, in the Queen's Gambit decline type fashion. Still many ways we could go here, not saying a lot, but we are saying that we're going to strike in the center and have just as much as you have in the center with the D5 move. Dubov chooses the G3 move, which these moves are very tricky. They're advanced. They're very annoying to face a lot of times if you are an Indian player, King's Indian, Nimzo, Bogo Indian, even sometimes in the Queen's Gambit decline positions. But D4 period, when you have the Finchetto variations in the G3 and the bishop to G2s, this is some of the toughest ways to fight black with the white pieces here, guys. So G3, very, very nice move here. And then bishop to B4 from Magnus saying, I don't want to have a passive bishop, putting it on E7. Bishop D6 does nothing at all. They say this in the chess books, biting on granite. If you put a bishop here on D6, that is doing nothing but hitting a brick wall or biting on granite here. So he actually chooses bishop to B4 check, which is a very nice move, intending things like bishop D2, hopefully knight to C3, or knight B to D2. Of course, Dubov, being who he is, plays the best move here, knight B to D2 actually, which is just a very good move and saying, hey, if you trade, guess what? I have two bishops and you don't, and two bishops are an advantage. So let's back up here. Instead of bishop takes D2, Magnus just castles and says, I'm not going for any of that. There's still a lot of chess to be played here. Bishop to G2, as it should be played here. You want to stay consistent with your moves. I did play G3, so why not follow up with bishop to G2? And that should be the same case if B6 happens or even B3. Usually, you would put the bishop on the square to follow. So bishop to G2, we do see B6 here in a Queen's Indian fashion. So of course you transpose, it could be this opening, it could be that opening. And now we have what we call, of course, and Magnus is actually pretty good, really good actually, with the Queen's Indian. If you look at many games from him, he does have a Queen's Indian repertoire under his belt. So B6, bishop to B7, we've seen him play many Queen's Indians. And after B6, there is a castle and bishop to B7, as we should follow the protocol here. We played B6 to Finchetto, so we shouldn't do anything else most likely but just Finchetto, especially with this bishop lurking. So knight to E5 by Dubov says, hey, I'm going to open up the board a little bit and expose that I am pinning your bishop. This pawn is actually pinned down to this bishop. The bishop's pinned to the pawn. This is not good. You could be in trouble if you're not paying attention here. Of course, it's Magnus. So we see everything that's going on, but let's pay attention to this move here. This knight E5 move is extremely strong, and we do expose the pin here. So let's see what black does. A5 from Magnus here, interesting move. It also is one of the theory moves that you would play in these type of positions. In the Queen's Indian, it just grabs some space and stops a potential B4. It's also a very strong prophylactic move and a defensive move all at the same time. We are expecting A3 to happen with maybe bishop to E7. And then B4 just is much harder to play because that's something that white loves to play here. So great move from Magnus. Playing A5. We see Queen C2 from Dubov here, putting some pressure on the C file. So eventually what we're going to do is move our knight, move this bishop, and put a rook on the C file, and there's going to be very uncomfortable pressure here on the C file. Even a move like knight, bishop to F4 is going to be a problem and very annoying to the C7 square, especially when the rook's able to swing over here too. Not only that, we're also aiming to this side. Nothing that we can do right now, but maybe an eventual E4 could also help us do something on the H7 square. Just a very flexible move. Not only that, guys, it opens up the D1 square just in case we want to put one of our rooks here. Let's see what happens. After queen to C2, A4 actually gaining some more space, says Magnus. Space is always good. Space is an advantage. And we have some queenside space. So he plays A4, and then white goes rook to D1 immediately. Nothing else. Rook to D1. Of course, it's a very nice move to make. Just an X-ray on the queen. There's an X-ray here. We tell students, make sure you're always aware. Always be aware of the X-ray. And there are two X-rays here. So this could be very problematic for black if we don't figure this out here. But of course, it's Magnus. We're going to figure it out, he says. Then he plays bishop to D6. And just backing it up, A3 is going to happen. We don't want to trade here and voluntarily help white open up and develop his pieces. That just wouldn't make sense here if we allow A3. Why would we allow him to just freely develop his pieces? So at this point, after rook to D1, we go bishop to D6, intending we may capture, and also C5, knight B to D7, finishing our development as well. After bishop d6, we do see c takes d5 from Dubov here, opening the file with a smile. This is exactly what we wanted to do anyway, and eventually put a rook on the c file. So then we do have e takes d5 from Magnus here, and then beautiful move here, guys. What would you make in this position? Pause the video really quickly. What would you actually do in this position with white? If you're Dubov in this position, this is what he played. Knight d to c4. What a move. That's beautiful, guys. Beautiful. Exploiting the pin here, saying that, hey, if you take my knight, which you can, I'm just going to be left with the two bishops here. And this is just an ugly position to play. As maybe rook a5, but also bishop to d2 comes. So this is not fun. Like, you just don't want to play this, guys. You don't want to take that knight there. So knight d to c4. And of course, Magnus does not take the knight. And after that, he plays h6 instead, because bishop g5 is extremely annoying. It will be coming, maybe things like knight to g4, especially after taking on d6. You could also take on f6. There's many things that can happen, and it's also a good waiting move as well, just to figure out what's going on and try to really decipher this position. After h6, bishop f4. If you notice the development here, guys, I always tell students, every opening is the same. Here, with these kind of openings, here, everything has to be developed, guys. This may not be actual theory that you know from a book, and if you do have that problem where you don't know the theory from the book, you have to revert back to fundamentals, regular chess. You have to develop your pieces anyway. And here we see knight d to c4. There's a knight on e5. There's a bishop on f4, a strong bishop on g2, a rook coming to c1. This is almost winning. We will say winning with quotation marks here, because of course it's not crushing, it's not winning, but you do have a favorable position due to the likenesses of my pieces. My pieces are doing great. They're all developed, beautiful squares here. And let's see what happens with the game. So Magnus goes rook to e8, just says, I'm going to put the rook on the file here. We need something to do. We have to make good moves, at least try to here, especially in this pressure-like position that white's putting on us. Rook a to c1, and everything is developed. Black is still 2 tempi away, maybe even 3, because it's moving the queen off the back rank from actually completing development. So this could be a problem. You don't complete development, things start to happen. There are already threats like knight takes f4, followed by knight takes f7. And if knight takes d6, followed by knight takes f7. And then if knight takes d6, you have to take with the pawn, which doubles the pawn. So this is really ugly. Knight takes d6, queen takes, knight takes f7. What is going on, says Magnus. So he plays knight to a6 here, not only developing, but also threatening the lightning moves of like knight to b4 and defending c7 at the same time, because this was a very weak point. So knight to c7, knight a6 is defending, and here we go, a3. So he says no knight b4s today. And knight b4, not that it is an annoying move, but you actually can't go many squares. You could go knight to c6 afterwards, but that does allow some type of x-rays to happen. Loose pieces lose games, so you would have some problems if, for instance, we see knight b4 and then knight to c6. And then immediately, guys, you're hanging a piece, right? So you have to be aware of that. You got to be careful. So he could have allowed knight to b4, but why give him that? a3, much better. a3, and then black plays bishop to f8. So Magnus just goes for bishop f8. Maybe c5 could be in the future here. Rook to c8, and he's defending like a beast would, because a beast could. Now after bishop f8, there's knight to e3 here, just saying, hey, you know what? It's time to keep the file open here, especially if you plan to move this knight, because this knight literally has no squares to go to. What a gross knight. Very bad knight here. While this knight, on the other hand, both of these knights are much better than these knights. This is the strongest knight, of course, for black, with defending d5. e4 can eventually come in as well, but knight f5 looks really good for white. We have pressure on the file. Very, very hard for him to figure this out here. Now, here it is, guys. c5 is the move for black, but g5 is actually a playable move here. And it may have been a little bit too greedy, though. But knight takes f7, king takes, and then bishop to e5. And this would have got very wild. This could have been played. Now, of course, this wasn't played here. White's a little bit better here. It's like slightly. It's weird. It's a very weird situation here. But the king safety is definitely the highlighted moment here. Now, after knight to e3, we do see c5 from Magnus. And then after c5, knight f5. Every piece that Dubov has is on a great square. This is the best type of development 101, however you want to call it, development class, fundamentals. This is it right here. This is how you develop your pieces in the best manner against the best in the world. But of course, anyone else that you're playing, guys, make sure you develop your pieces optimally, like how Dubov is doing. Knight to f5, we do see c takes d4 here. And then we have a beautiful move, guys. What would you actually play? Now, most people, of course, taking on d4. Rook takes, knight takes. Are you taking on d4? Or what else are you doing in this position? Pause the video, a few seconds. What are you going to play in this position? Here it is, guys. Instead of taking on d4, beautiful in-between move. Knight to c6. Very good move here. Knight to c6 is actually hitting a lot of black's territory. I'm in black's territory. The queen is hanging here. I can also take now another attacker on d4. And now if we do see a capture on c6, well, not only do we have the bishop here, this pawn structure is atrocious for black here, and there's a lot of problems as well. So now after knight to c6, we do see queen to d7. And then look at this move, guys. Bishop to h3. Bishop h3, he's saying, I am about to play knight takes h6, and this is where it got crazy, guys. Pay attention to the rest of the game here. After bishop h3, king h8 is a mistake. King h8 is just not a move. It's not the best move, of course. Now we do have some other lines here. Let's just take a look at a few. Bishop takes c6, queen takes c6 could be a thing. And then we have queen takes c6. Now, I know you guys are wondering, what happens on knight takes h6? Well, let's see. Knight takes h6, g takes, we get a queen, and you'll be thinking, man, I'm just, crushing his white here. But in reality, it's actually about an equal position according to engines here. But as a human here, black actually has some compensation. I have all of the minor pieces and my rooks. Only thing I'm missing is my queen. The only piece I'm missing is my queen here. So there is a lot of compensation for black here. There is some compensation. It's going to be extremely difficult, I would say, to play as black here, especially as a human. But at the same time, you can definitely make it work. You can close files up. Rooks love open files. We have bishops and knights. This is actually a very dynamic position here. Now, what happens on queen takes c6 after we go back here? Bishop takes, let's say queen takes c6. Queen takes c6, rook takes, and then rook takes e2, which would be, this could be a better position to play as black here. But of course, you do still have the double pawns. This is not fun to play, but it could be a little bit better than what happened in the game. After bishop h3, there is king to h8. King h8 is not, of course, the best move here, but as we looked at. But let's see what happens. Knight to e5 from Dubov here. Now, this is why king h8 is, of course, not the best move, because knight e5 immediately, and not that it ends the game, but it makes black definitely have to find something. You got to find something here now. And there's only one move in this position. Can you guys find it? My queen actually has no squares to go to on this file. And f7 is hanging. I cannot let you take on f7. I just can't let you take on f7. And my queen's hanging. So what do I do here? I'm in a slight dilemma, says Magnus. What do I do? Here it is. Rook takes e5. This is the best try. Now I'm down in exchange here. Of course, Dubov accepts. Knight to e4, and then bishop takes d4. So we're eyeing this side of the board. I mean, like, we got the files really nice. This is, we can draw more arrows, guys. Like, this is very bad here. We're in some trouble as Dubov is smelling the blood in the water. Bishop takes d4 and rook to c8. It says, please take my rook. Of course he's not going to do it. Queen to d3 moves right out of the way, and knight a to c5. Magnus finally is able to move that a knight into the center, or else it was just going to sit over here not doing anything and contributing to the game at all. So queen to e3, nice move here, guys. Can you smell the small tactic? It's very small, but very deadly at the same time. So queen to e3, if we see anything else besides maybe f6, then you have queen takes h6. Let's just make like rook to c7. Doesn't work here, guys. Queen h6, look at that, exploiting the pin here. Hopefully you did your tactics or had your tactics for breakfast. Now let's go back. After knight a to c5, we have a bishop takes c5. White's still winning, but the bishop pair will soon give black some counterplay. So let's see what happens, though. After knight takes c5, there's queen to f3 in this position. And here's a nice move from Magnus. Magnus is finally finding some type of play here, and he immediately opens up his bishops with d4. Yes, I'm sacrificing the pawn. And how hard is this move to make? Think about that, guys. How hard is this move to make? I'm already down in exchange. Okay, and I'm fighting for my life here. There's like all kind of pins everywhere. This just doesn't feel good. And he gives up even more material by playing d4 just to open up his bishops, guys. What a strong move, actually. Opens the lines up for bishops and counterplay. So rook takes d4, then queen to e8, kind of like our best move here. And then queen to e3, trying to trade the queens off. Now, actually, queen g4 is a slightly better. And after queen c6, you see e4, and white keeps a very big advantage, actually, to say here, blocking the file now. Queen's a little bit better place, and we do have tactics arising in a few moves. Now, after queen to e3, we do see queen to c6 anyway. And this one, man, this is a tough move to make, guys. Whew. Bishop's on the board, and like, you have to play this kind of move because you're getting mated. You have to make the move. You always have to play what you have to play, not what you want to play. And what you have to play here is f3. This just kind of hurts to play this move. You can just smell the bishop getting here. If the bishop gets there, it's just waiting. itching to get to the c5 square, right? F3, and now after F3, there's rook to E8. We got to try to move some stuff around, move our queen out of the way, move the knight. We have a lot of things to do, but once we get this bishop to c5, we should be live, says Magnus. Now, rook E8, queen F2, we stepping out of the way here. Still would love to get the bishop to c5, and then G6 happens. We're backtracking. Seems like Magnus is picking up momentum here, doing well, attacking, make threats, guys. You're either making threats or you're setting up to make threats. And after G6, he plays knight to E3 here, knight E3, queen F6. We're making progress. Now all we need to do is remove the knight and bishop c5 comes in. So now let's see what happens. After queen to f6, there is actually knight to g4, not the best move. The best move was actually rook c to c4 here. Kind of a different move to make. It looks kind of unusual, but it is threatening things like rook to f4. Now, after knight to g4, we do have queen to g7, rook c to d1, doubling on the file. Then there's h5, kicking that knight away again, knight over to b3. Finally, we move the knight. Now bishop c5. You can't really stop me from doing it. So rook 4 to d3. And then queen takes b2 is the move that was played in the game. This was from Magnus. He plays queen takes b2. But why not the immediate pin, right? Bishop to c5 is a very strong move. It's an immediate pin here. And then you may see something like bishop to d7. Of course, attacking the rook, doing something. And also trying to loosen this rook from this annoying file here. But he just takes it anyway. And then takes and then take on b2. So this was usually just a little bit better, of course. But queen takes b2, it is very playable, of course. And then actually rook to d7 now, hitting b7 and hitting f7 at the same time. Now we have bishop to c5. So if you take this bishop, well, hey, I'm going to get this knight here. And this is where it's going to get very, very wild, guys. After bishop c5, rook takes f7. I give up the pawn and I go king h6, says Magnus, because king h8 has too many mates. King h8, you will get mate, okay? King h8 is not good. So let's see what happens. Why is king h8 not good? Rook takes b7, sacrificing my queen for checkmate. Let's see it. Bishop takes e3, queen takes, and if you take my queen, have a nice day. Mate on the back rank, guys. Beautiful checkmate there. So king h8 was not playable, as it may look like it was, but it wasn't the move here. And king h8, he recognized this and places his king to king h6. Now rook d to d7 anyway here, guys. And believe it or not, first off, white's actually threatening mate threats, real mate threats. Rook check, king g7, f4. So if we just make a move here, let's just show it on the screen here, guys. Mate is right here. Mate is right here, guys. So here's mate right there. So you're going to be in a lot of trouble. He's in for, you know, mate. Really, it's definitely there. So after rook d to d7, right here threatening this mate. What do you do to get out of the mate, guys? There's a lot of things going on. E3's hanging. We may have some checks on the back rank. Now, I'm going to tell you guys what the best move is. But first, can you find it? Here it is. Here's the best move. The best move and only move, actually, is queen to h8. Ouch. Not the move we're trying to make, right? Not the move we're trying to make. But it is the best move here. Magnus actually chose queen to a1 check, which immediately gets him in trouble. After king to g2, bishop takes h3 or e3, and then rook check and king to g5, guys. And here it is right here. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this move right here? Are you ready? I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready, guys. Here it is. Rook takes b7. Oh my goodness, it's there. It's on the screen. Unpinning my f-pawn. My f-pawn is not pinned anymore because the bishop was pinning this, and we were trying to get f4 to work as quickly as possible here. But it would not be good, of course, right? So, and this is why queen h8 was good too, because of the pin. Like, it's very difficult to do that. And, you know, in certain situations, guys, we had to make sure that we can get f4 to work because of this pin. This pin is quite annoying. But, of course, bishop takes, rook check, and then rook takes and rook f8. Yeah. Rook h7 check, king g5, rook takes b7. And after rook takes b7, we do unpin the f-pawn now. So, of course, taking does lead into mate immediately. Check, and then mate. This was the mate we were going for. But, of course, we wanted to get this mate, and the mate is there, but the bishop is pinning. So, we do have to remove that. And after he does so, the game's completely over. King g2, bishop takes e3, rook h7, king g5. Taking the bishop, because it was pinning. Rook f8 to stop this check. Okay, or actually, yeah, this check when the king's on f6. And what does he do? Just take the bishop. Queen takes e3. And then now the game ended right here, guys. But let's actually see for you guys. If rook f4, of course, queen takes f4 is mate on the board. And if king f6, you have queen e7 and also rook to b6 as mate. Two different mates here, guys. Beautiful Beautiful chess here. I mean, beautiful game from Dubov here. This was amazing as he was able to tactically win this one here. We had some mate threats everywhere, of course. So Dubov showed us an amazing game, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys loved this game. But I'm National Master James Canty III, and this is Chess.com Game of the Day, and we'll see you guys on the next video.